Hello there, I hope you guys are doing well. For those who don't know me, my name is Mark Gallagher. I'm a ukulele player from Manchester who does a lot of cover videos and other stuff in the ukulele world and beyond. I woke up this morning with the intention of recording vocals, however I've got a bit of a cold, so I thought I'd record some other content instead. And I've had a couple of people ask me what kind of gear I use, and I thought it'd be quite fun to do a little video just talking about all my various instruments, both ukulele and otherwise. So think of these next few minutes as sort of self-indulgence on my part as I just have a bit of a nerdy geek out about the various toys I get to play with. So let's talk about ukuleles first, and I think I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my Pono first. If you've seen any videos of me, chances are you've seen me play with this Pono Tenor. It is an ETCPC, it's an ebony Pro Classic, it's got cedar top, and it is my main gigging uke. I absolutely adore this thing, and I take it pretty much every single gig that I play. I love it very much. This has been my main gigging uke since 2018 when I bought it. It is my absolute bread and butter, my workhorse. Love this ukulele. I love Pono. I'm not saying that just because I'm a Pono artist. I'm actually the opposite. I am a Pono artist because I absolutely love Pono. Up next we've got my Kanilea SUS-T. This is very much like my backup ukulele. If the Pono dies or goes into maintenance or breaks a string or whatever, then this comes on board. I got this in 2020. I got it like just before lockdown. I did a Jewish gig in Bournemouth. I stayed over, and then the next day I went into Southern Ukulele Store. I recorded a duet with Alex, and on said duet I played this, and I just said after the session, I think I'll take this, and they were absolutely wonderful to me. It was just poor timing on my part to spend hundreds on a new instrument and then have all my gigs taken away from me by COVID. You've probably seen me play this on a lot of other different videos of mine. Got a bit more of a subdued tone than the more like punchy in-your-faceness of the Pono, but I absolutely love cedar as a tone wood, and I remember being in love with this instrument when I was playing it on that duet. I've got a whole video on this instrument back from when I first got it. Gonna move on next to my baritone. This is the Pono ABD, the Acacia Baritone Deluxe. This is a little Christmas present I got for myself back in 2020. I really wanted a baritone, and finally I bit the bullet. World Ukes were fantastic in selling me this, and I love it. It's brilliant. I've done a whole video on this and on several different videos of trying to find the right string combination. I think I'm now quite happy with the D'Addario titaniums that I've got on this. It's adorable. I started using it more and more in gigs now, especially as like a middle ground between ukulele and guitar. More on that slightly later. It's always fascinating when I do play baritone at gigs because I feel like my approach to the instrument's very different. I'll play songs using, they'll be in the same key, so using different chord shapes, but the way I physically approach the baritone is different in ways I've not been able to quite exactly pin down yet, but I don't play the same song in the same kind of way on this as I would on my tenor. Up next is one of my absolute favourite ukuleles that I really don't show enough on the channel. This is my Anuenue concert koa. It's the model Ohau Koa 2. I adore this instrument. I don't know if you pronounce it Anuenue or Anuenue. When I bought it in Manchester, the dealer called it Anuenue, and I've never really been able to shy away from it. So I got this from Forsyth in 2016 as a little treat for myself. It's all solid koa, and I just played it in the store and absolutely fell in love with it. It was secondhand. I don't know if they really have this kind of model available from new, but yeah, I just remember being absolutely enamored by it, its clarity, the way it sang. I adored this instrument, and I kept coming back for it. And then eventually I just decided to get a pickup installed and took it home. And it's quite fascinating. Like at the time especially, I realized that this ukulele cost more than my first car. And it was the first time that I'd ever really spent a considerable amount of money on a ukulele. But this is my go-to high G ukulele. So I recorded things like Intimacy from Songs from Happy Winter. I recorded that on this ukulele because it's just gorgeous. It's just so clean, so sweet. It's my absolute favourite high G ukulele. I wish I played this more live. I wish I showed it more in my videos. I'm a low G player primarily, but this is just gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. Up next is my 1930s Pele Soprano. I got this a few months ago at the memorial service of someone in the ukulele community. I've done a whole video about this instrument. Like with the Anuenue, I kind of picked it up, played it, and then I just kept coming back to it multiple times. The instrument just really spoke to me, and I just love how characterful it is. It's got just a lot of character to it. It's got a lot of mojo, a lot of mid-range, but it feels playful. And I did a series of 30s covers on this instrument, and I think I want to revisit it because I really enjoyed doing that series, and I love this instrument so much. It's one that I definitely didn't need, but it just spoke to me, and I'm so glad. Like, it's the ukulele that I pick up when the kettle is boiling. It is the one that I pick up and I just have a little noodle to myself while I'm waiting for something small or a small moment of time to pass. I love this instrument so much. Next one is an instrument that I don't think gets enough love. This is my Rob Collins soprano, made of various woods. I can't remember exactly which ones are being applied where, but this is a lovely little instrument that I got because I worked at Grand Northern Ukulele Festival. During one of the jam sessions, I borrowed someone's ukulele that was a soprano made by Rob Collins, and I loved how loud it was for a soprano. I asked Mr. Collins about how he got his ukulele so loud for such a small little box, told me about the bracing that he uses, and he mentioned that he had one of these in the works. This is the model number 414, which I find nice because of the microphone, the AKG C414. I like that little bit of synergy. I use my Grand Northern work as part payment for this instrument, and it's so characterful. It's very bright, very punchy compared to the more subdued nature of the 30s uke. I love how much this really just like barks at you. Let's just go into Southern Ukulele Store territory. Absolutely adore this instrument. It's one that I sadly don't play live much, mainly just because I'm a low G player primarily. However, if I was to do more gigs where I was single mic'd and I did sort of like older stuff, I would really enjoy playing this ukulele live. I've done it a few times on small gigs, but I love to spend some more time with this instrument in a live context because it's just so punchy as hell for a soprano. It just really barks at you, and it's what I love about it. The next one I got is an 8-string Ohana ukulele. You might notice that this 8-string ukulele has no strings on it. This was a ukulele that was gifted to me by Southern Ukulele Store. I did a whole video about the present that they sent me. It was a complete mystery and a complete surprise, and it was very, very sweet of them. So the story with this one is that it's got a little bit of a lift sort of in the body by the bridge here, and rather than send it from SUS to California and back, they decided to just sort of give it away. They're like, hey, we can't really sell this, so here you go, Mark, we like the stuff you're doing. And I made a fun bit of content, so I did a good few videos using the 8-string. However, I knew it was not going to last forever, and that sadly came to pass. A while back, the bridge finally lifted. It's not really possible to properly repair it, or at least it's not viable to. So currently, I intend to turn this into sort of like a plant pot for hanging vines, but that is the subject of another video for another time. Moving on slightly, I've also got my Dulcimer. This is the Merlin Seagull. This is wonderful because it is tuned in open tuning and the frets are diatonic, so instead of going up semitones like on a ukulele, it goes up the major scale. This means that it's pretty much impossible to play a wrong note. You have to try really hard on this instrument. I love it. I did a few covers back in 2020 of things like You Can't Always Get What You Want by the Rolling Stones. I saw her today at the reception, a glass of wine in her hand. I did an introductory video about how the Merlin worked, and also you might have heard it on Cartoon Physics on the song Saving It for Later. It's the main instrument. I actually wrote the song on this instrument. It's great just being able to mess around with those open chords and the various sort of permutations thereof and making those faux 1, 4 and 5 chords. I love that. And that's one of the really fun things about this instrument. And then a controversial move, now we're going to look at guitars. I know, right? How sacrilegious. Well, actually, I was a guitarist before I played ukulele. Guitar was my second instrument that I ever learned. Ukulele was the fourth. I picked ukulele up about a year after I first picked up guitar. And the story for me basically is that I used to play guitar mainly, and that was my work instrument. That was the instrument that would stay in its case, would come out for 2 hours at a gig, and then it'd go back in. Whereas at home, I was playing ukulele for fun. So in late 2016, I kind of started making that switch because I needed to kind of rebrand myself and establish myself. And I decided to do it on the fun instrument of the ukulele. I like to think I still am a guitarist, even though ukulele is now very much my main instrument. I still have guitar elements to me. Speaking of those guitar elements, this is my Takamine. It's the EGS430SC. Gosh, I hate names that sound like product codes or serial numbers. I've never enjoyed that. But yes, this Takamine was very much my main gigging guitar. I got this at Crew Guitar Fair back in 2014. I used to love going to those guitar shows, the Mojo guitar shows. I loved them, especially as a young teenager. I wish I had that feeling now when I go into guitar stores of just being enamored and feeling like a kid in a candy store. I really wish I had that feeling again. Yes, but this is one of those situations where I was at that guitar fair and I came across this guitar and I was just very enamored. I think I've used that word a lot today, but I was really just taken by this guitar, and it's one that I use a lot. Well, I did when I was back in my gigging musical days. It's been interesting. Recently, I've been booked to do some more guitar work, and it's been interesting for me trying to relearn the instrument because I was so rusty. And for someone who really knows his way about the ukulele neck and that whole playing style, to kind of go back to doing these full chords, it was quite the learning curve for me, and it's been interesting trying to get back into more guitar. It's something I hope to practice and maybe start doing the odd gig now and then playing guitar, just to kind of prove that I still can. Up next is my Patrick SP6 cedar. I absolutely love cedar, as I've mentioned before, and this is kind of like my secondary gigging guitar. I got this because I love Patrick as a brand. I remember very fondly going into R&B music in Crew, and there was a Patrick for about 300 something pounds, and there was a series of Gibson acoustics. They were all priced at like 1,250, 1,500, 1,725 or something like that. You know, stupid prices. And I played all those, and I played a Patrick, and I preferred the S&P. I loved it. It's just got such a brightness to it, such punch. Ever since, I've always gone back to Patrick guitars. I've always really scouted for them when they have been in guitar shops because I love their guitars so much. And my friend Barry Maz have got a ukulele. Back in 2013, I want to say, was selling Patrick that he had, and I was very swift to bite it. I absolutely love this. It's got the brass pins on the bridge, which just gives some extra brightness and sizzle to it. So when I'm playing along with this, it feels like it's got so much more mid-range girth than the comparatively cleaner Takamine. What I really like with this one is just the way it sings when I play single notes on it. Much as I really love this guitar and I never want to leave it, it's still very much the secondary acoustic because it's got a few criticisms that I have with it. The action is really high, so when I'm playing stuff like F down here or a B flat, it's just absolute hell on my hand. The intonation isn't great. It does kind of lose its way up around the higher frets. And also I installed an LR Baggs M1 pickup in this so I could play it live, and it's okay, but tonally I wish I instead had a piezo with a nice preamp instead. Just I think the magnetic pickup doesn't particularly capture what I want out of this guitar. Up next we're going to look at bass. I was playing bass around the same time that I learned to play ukulele. It was 2011. I decided that I wanted to be in a band, and to do that I needed to sing, play guitar, play bass and drums. I was already kind of singing back then, albeit just badly, and I learned guitar the previous year, so I just wanted to expand upon it. I thought bass, root notes mainly, and arpeggios, well I kind of have that, so I got a bass and was able to kind of like blag my way into some functional roles. And it was at one of these guitar fairs that I got my first ukulele. It was a Falcon Soprano made by the company Vintage. It was a ukulele I named Billy. I've since donated that ukulele to my high school, the music department, where it's probably like been trashed. Probably. Anyway, this bass I got from Mojo Guitar Fair in 2013. It's my Fender Precision bass in Olympic White. I really wanted a P bass because I had an Encore Precision style bass, but I wanted like a real thing, so I got this. It's Fender Mexico, but what I think musicians should try and do when they're buying is, if they buy the more high quality, high value stuff sooner, then they won't have to kind of buy up and up and up. So rather than me having my beginner bass and then next level, etc., I just went from my Encore to this, and I've never let this go. I never want to let it go. It's my main bass, if any. Absolutely love playing bass. It's one of my favorite instruments to play. I mentioned before I want to be in a band. That's kind of something I always wanted to do as a musician. And if I could, I'd probably join as a bass player because I have so much fun. I've done gigs where I occasionally dep as a bass player, someone can't make it and I jump in, and those are some of the most fun gigs for me. One of my favorite gigs that I did, I played Galway Ukulele Festival, and that was an incredible weekend. And then after the second night, immediately after that, I got roped into playing a guitar duo covers gig, and I was playing on bass with this guy I didn't really know, and we were just vibing along with each other, and I was playing bass, and it was the most fun thing. I absolutely loved it. Bass is such a cool instrument for me. I wish I played it more. Mostly it's just my bass playing has now resided to noodling, and then whenever I do need to record, then that's what I whack it out for. But otherwise, I love bass so much. It's probably the four strings: ukulele, bass. Just can't beat it. As well as my P bass, I've also got my Fender Jazz bass. I prefer the tone of precision bass, but when the gig and the situation requires a bit more versatility, the jazz bass is great. This is a Fender Mexico. This one's interesting because it's got an active pickup and slightly different controls. Normally on a jazz bass with its two pickups, you would have a volume pot for each pickup and then a tone knob. Instead here, we've got your volume, we've got a blend knob between these two. So in the center, it's both equally. Towards here, it is more of the neck pickup, and then towards here is more of the bridge. And you've also got bass, middle, and treble controls on here as well. Bass! This was an eBay purchase that I went and collected from Redditch. It was a big, long train journey. I almost missed the train. I remember picking this up and then just absolutely having a way with it on the big train ride home, but I love this instrument. Like I said before, I prefer the tone of the P bass, but jazz bass is so versatile and got such, instead of like a roundness like the P bass, it's got a bit more of a forward punchiness to it. Got it. I love it so much. Please book me to play bass. I have so much fun playing on it. It's just four strings for life. We're going to look at some more guitars now, and you guys might find this fascinating because I have never gigged with electric guitar, yet I own 4 of them. I love guitar. It was my main instrument for a long ass time, and it was one that I'd gotten a bunch of grades in and I absolutely loved doing. I just never got into being able to gig with them. I never got into bands, which is kind of something I'd always wanted to do. So these kind of just laid and gathered dust for a bit. First one I've got is my Fender Mexican Strat. eBay purchase, wanted a Strat, because before I had a Squier Strat that was heavily modded and not very good, and I wanted like a proper thing. This has got Seymour Duncan pickups. I just love the tone. With me getting some more guitar bookings, I'm hoping to like incorporate some electric guitar into my gigs. This plays like a dream. The action's really low. It's just nice and easy for me. The next guitar we're looking at is my Squier Telecaster. I listen to a lot of country music, namely Brad Paisley. He's one of my favourite guitarists and songwriters, and I kind of wanted to start playing some more country music, so a Telecaster is kind of the only way to go, really. This is one of my favourite guitars in terms of tone, especially clean tone. I just love how it shimmers. It's just got such a warm hue to it, and if I was gigging with electric guitar, this is probably the one I would break out, just because I feel like it fills that sonic space that could replace an acoustic guitar best, at least for my tastes and sensibilities as a musician. The next guitar today is my Gibson Les Paul Studio. This is from 1991, and it's the first time that I kind of owned an instrument that was older than me, which I found fascinating. I really liked Les Pauls from the times I had tried them in guitar stores, and I had the mindset of, okay, you need a Strat, a Tele, a Les Paul, and an SG. Spoilers. And I was kind of set on getting a Les Paul, and finally I had one. It cost me £315 from eBay. I remember I was 13 and I was 13, 14, and I was gigging. I wasn't gigging, I was busking, and I had about that much money saved up, but most of it was in change. I had sort of this piggy bank that kind of counted the money as you put it in. So it's like, well, it's okay if it's all in change, because you can still see that it's the right amount. And we spent that day hurriedly going to various shops in town trying to get it changed into notes as best as we could to present to the gentleman for purchase. It's 5 years older than I am. It's one of my faves. It's just got such balls to it. You know what, fuck it, let's have a bit of fun and put some overdrive on it. It's one of my favourite guitars. It holds a lot of sentimental value. This one is one that I don't really ever see me like leaving, just because I love it too much. I just got too many memories associated with it from when I was like 13, 14. The last guitar we're going to look at is my Gibson SG, and I love the story that comes with this one. I went to Snaky Jake's Custom Amplification in Crewe, which sadly is shut down now. I played an SG, thought, God, this is a lovely guitar, kinda want it. And then the next time I visited the shop hoping to purchase it, it had gone, and I was quite gutted. And I then shortly after went to a gig by Jimmy Damage and The Shadow, and the frontman and guitarist Jim Farmer was playing an SG, this SG, and I was flabbergasted, and I spoke to him about it, and he mentioned that he went out that day to kind of get a computer, and he ended up coming home with this, and he quipped that it didn't really have much RAM on it, which I thought was hilarious. And I kind of made a pact with him that whenever he decided to like part with this, I wanted it. I just loved the neck. I loved how it felt when I played it. With its twin humbuckers, I just love the balls of this guitar, like how guttural it feels. I've always enjoyed playing it whenever I've had the time to just kind of pick it up and noodle around. This is the guitar that I used to play the solo in Überrasch from Songs from a Happy Winter. The whole... And it's just one of my faves, absolutely. It's a shame because, like I said, I've never gigged with electric guitar, yet I have 4 of them. I love guitar. I wish I spent more time with it, and I wish I could kind of do more with it. And maybe I'll have more videos in which I can play through my guitars and do some fun stuff. For percussion, I've got a Cajon. I used to have a Gear for Music one, which I got for about 45 quid. That was the one I used on Cartoon Physics, but it did not sound great. I had to use a lot of studio magic to make it sound decent. And then like the day before my launch gig, I went and I purchased this. It's from Keo Percussion. I got it from PMT in Manchester, well, Salford technically, I think. I got it the day before my launch gig just so that we had something a little better to work with. I remember how much I enjoyed the sound of this particular Cajon at said gig, and it's one I'm hoping to enjoy it and use a bit more in future videos. I've also got a bag of just some various other bits of tat, things like this rain shaker thing that my Mum got me once from a charity shop or a boot sale or something. I got a pair of maracas that came with a Coca-Cola ukulele that I had. That sadly got stolen in 2018 I mean, but the maracas remain. Tambourine for all tambourine needs. Another maraca. I got another shaker. This is a little thing by Bugle. I met these guys in Essen at Ukulele in 2019 and I thought this was adorable. Just a little ukulele shaped shaker and I thought it was really cute and he gifted it to me. Another tambourine, because why not? This one's kind of like foot size, I think, so you could sort of have it on your foot and do that whole gimmick. Got melodica that is so dusty that I am not going to play this. Wow. And I've also got a little box of harmonicas. Gosh, I have not played these in ages. In terms of amps, I'm a little bit of a Fender bender. For guitar, it's my Fender Stage 160 DSP. I wanted a 2x12 type thing. I just like the overdrive channels on this, especially I like the multi-effects it's got. It's got different choices for reverb as well as your secondary effect, which I kind of keep as delay. For bass, I have the Fender Rumble 200. It's a 1x15 bass, which I remember really enjoying the sound of it when I tried it for the first time in Dawson's. I ended up getting a slightly cheaper option, which is from the States, and then I plugged it in, turned it on, and I blew the fuse because it was an American fuse. So I had to get that swapped over, and it was all a bit of a hassle for me. In addition to the amp itself, it's also going out into a PV extension cab, which is 1x15. I've had the speaker cone replaced, but still it's just massive, like that 2 15-inch speaker sound. For pedals, I've got a Boss RC50 loop station. I used to use it in my gigs around about 2016, 2017, but I kind of phased it out as I tried to keep it more within the ukulele itself, and also just to save some space so I didn't have to carry as much gear around. For multi-effects, I've got the Boss ME80. It's fun. It just gives me a framework of different effects to use. Again, I've just never really gigged with it, but I enjoy when I do kind of have a mess around with it. I've also got a pair of shitty Behringer pedals, one for reverb and one for overdrive. They're okay. I enjoyed them when I was a teenager. It's Behringer, innit? You might have noticed the PA gear that I've got. I have Mackie SRM 450s and I've got a Mackie Thump 12 as a monitor that I use. I used to have 2 pairs of these, but I sold half of them at the start of the pandemic because gigs weren't coming back anytime soon. And while we're on the subject of amplification and PA, I'd like to direct you to this unassuming suitcase because in it, it houses my Fishman Loudbox Mini Charge. At the start of 2019, I was traveling and busking throughout Europe. I know I needed a battery-powered amplifier that was good and not a rolling cube because they're not good. And I got this absolute beauty, which I stored in a suitcase along with a bag of shite, and I could just easily wheel it around city to city. When I got back home from my travels, I realized that this 60-watt amp kind of packs a punch, especially in some of the smaller venues I was playing and gigging at. And I didn't really like the idea of carrying 2 massive speakers, a bunch of stands, a mixing desk, and a shit ton of cables when everything I needed was here. So this has been like my main gigging outfit lately. Rather than using a mixing desk, I'd use this. And if it was a larger venue, I would take an output from this and put it into one of my Mackie speakers. But generally speaking, normally I just need to stick this on a table or a chair and I'm good, because usually the places I play in are small enough for this to actually fill it. I expanded upon this a little bit more last year around September time when I was getting into more gigs. I decided to get the Fishman Loudbox Performer. Basically, it's this, but bigger. It's 180 watts instead of 60. It's got a bit more in the field of effects instead of just a reverb. It's got a bit more stuff going on. I just wanted something with a bit more of a deeper bass response for some of the percussive, tappy stuff that I do. On the other side of my music room, I've got my piano. This is a Kawai EOS 110. Piano was the first instrument that I ever learned how to play. I was 12 years old and my dad took me to watch Monsters vs. Aliens at the cinema. And in that, there's a visual gag where the President of the United States communicates to this alien robot thing through synthesis, and he does it playing the Crazy Frog theme. And after watching that film, I went home, took out the old keyboard, and I figured it out by ear. And it was from doing this and doing it in the music department that I kind of started getting piano lessons. And piano was the first instrument that I ever learned. It's one of my favorite instruments to play, possibly the favorite, because from an expression standpoint, I feel like I can express myself more in terms of my feelings better on piano than I can on ukulele or any other instrument. I love it so much, and it's a shame that the piano performance videos I've done haven't performed so well amongst the ukulele observed audience, mainly because it's not got 4 strings and is that big. I want to do more piano gigs. It was something I endeavored to do a few years ago, and as a result, I upgraded my little Yamaha keyboard into like a proper electric piano. It fits the vibe of what I do, and depending on the gigs as they come, I'm looking to do more piano stuff because it's one of my favorite instruments to play. To my left, off camera, we've got just cases of things like cables. We've got some microphones. I've got my Ear Trumpet Lab stuff, which I mainly use nowadays, but I've also got my GC414. I've got a Samson drum mic kit. I've got the Sontronics STC2, which I've always really liked. So I've just got a bunch of shite, and I've got a couple of mixing desks. Mainly I use the Mackie DL1608 for one of my live sound gigs, but otherwise I have a CFX12, which is what I learned on in college. You can probably also make out the closet that I've got there, which is where I just store all my mic stands and instrument cases, so it's nothing really to see there. I also have a violin. This is one that I got from a pawn shop in Nantwich for £10, and it is quarter size. It is an absolute baby of a violin. Look how tiny it is! Look how small it is! It's quarter size, and I thought it was 10 quid. Why not? I think at the time I also knew how to play mandolin, which is tuned the same. So it was very easy for me to just go, okay, it's just take the same notes, and then just having to learn how to use a bow. Let's see if I can remember anything about playing violin. I remember once doing a video of Karma Chameleon. Gosh, the bow needs some more resin on it. My favourite memories of the quarter-size violin includes taking it to my school's orchestra, in which I showed it to the actual violin players, and they had a little go of it and were just very perplexed by it. And also a small festival, Nuke Fest, I believe it was called, in Tiverton. Back in 2013, I want to say, I played there, and as part of the final number, they kind of took a page out of the Ukulele Festival of Great Britain's book, and they ended with "Oh Mary, Don't You Weep." And in that performance, Andy Eastwood, the ukulele legend, he played violin on it and said, "Hey Mark, you got a fiddle recently. Do you want to play violin in this big group thing along?" And I did. And it's the only time I've ever played violin live, and most likely the only time I ever will. The last piece of gear I want to look at today is my saxophone. This is a Boosey & Hawkes B&H 400 alto sax. Yes, I play saxophone, sorta, kinda. I used to, it's kinda complicated. So basically, when I said I wanted to be in a band, I mentioned the 4 roles that I considered were necessary to be in a band: vocals, guitar, bass, and drums. My thought was if I learned to do all of those, I could satisfy any role and I could join a band. So I kind of got to that. I had vocals, and at least I had the confidence for vocals. I was not quite as skilled as I like to think I am now. I learned guitar the next year, and then the bass the year after that. So when I approached my mother about finally learning to play drums, she just kind of flat out said, "Nope, too loud, too big, no, you've got your other instruments." And I was like, well, there's the end of the road for that. But it made me think in slightly different ways, because I was like, okay, what other directions can I go down? And I decided to look at things like the Dave Clark Five, who had a saxophonist. I looked at things like jazz orchestras and jazz arrangements and trying to bring that. So I was also thinking like sort of the country element, and like, oh, if I could join like country bands, I could learn things like banjo, because I was playing a couple of stringed instruments already. Then I can play mandolin, and then from mandolin I can play violin because they're tuned the same. And that was the direction I went down. So by mum giving that initial rejection, it actually opened up more doors for me, because it meant that I started learning more instruments. And that's kind of how I've always approached music. During my childhood, during my teenage years, I wanted to be versatile. So I didn't really have much of a life, to be honest. I went to all the clubs in my school's music department, and I did everything I could to fill a role in every way I could. And that was why I learned all the instruments I did. And it came back to bite me on the arse, because it took me years before I kind of realized my main instrument, which is ukulele now. But it's nice kind of looking at the instruments that I play, that I have played, and revisiting them, and maybe I'll do more videos of them, who knows. For the lols, I'll just have a little jam out on saxophone, why not? Gosh, so many instruments I've not picked up for a long time, because lately it's just been ukulele. And I love ukulele very much so, but it's kind of nice just being able to take this sort of stroll down memory lane and kind of revisit some of the instruments that I really used to love. And I need to just go to more open mics and just start playing these again, because just playing music is just so much fun. There you have it, guys. That's a look at all the gear that I use, all the instruments and other bits of equipment and stuff. I've had a lot of fun going through memory lane and just revisiting these instruments that I used to love and what kind of captivated me about them. If you want to help support me and my collection of instruments, then you can go to patreon.com/MarkGallagherMusic, and your pledges, they go towards supporting me, and you get various perks and rewards in return, such as lessons, tutorials on my cover videos, and more. Other free ways to support me includes liking my Facebook page, following me on Instagram, or subscribing to my YouTube channel. All of those are at Mark Gallagher Music. Until next time, my name is Mark Gallagher. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all again soon. Have a lovely day.